Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I'd talk about what to do if your writing kind of looks like this. So you definitely cannot draw and you don't even really love the concept of a notebook. So if you want to jump right to me talking about the system, you can go to the timestamp right here if you already know how the bullet journaler system works and don't need the background. Otherwise, let me give you the background on my journey and what I'm thinking of trying to implement for a bullet journal system that doesn't require all the artwork. If you guys have seen my previous videos, you guys know that I am a functional planner through and through. Like, I cannot make things look pretty to save my life. So yeah, bullet journaling, especially in the current community of bullet journaling, is just not in my realm of possibilities. Like, the amount of amazing spreads is just crazy. I feel like by the time that people are done with their bullet journal, it becomes like almost like an artwork publication than like a planner. And there's just no way that I could do it. Nevertheless, I was definitely drawn into bullet journaling, the creative aspect of it. So I did try bullet journaling back in the day. And I talked about bullet journaling kind of more loosely in the way I think the community has it now, where it's, you know, more about doing the spreads and not necessarily the original Ryder Carroll method. And I tried it and it didn't work for me for two reasons, I would say. One is because I didn't have the time to make all these spreads like month to month. Sometimes I would get really busy and I just didn't have time to create it. And as soon as I started just like doing a random spread and not making it look nice, I didn't want to use it anymore. And with a notebook, like, you can't just rip out the pages, right? So that kind of led into number two. I don't really like a notebook because I can't take out the pages if I want to. And the main thing from a functional perspective that I don't like is that you kind of have to tab where you left things and you can't really like move the pages around. I like my categories of items to be together in the same section, right? If you guys know what I mean. So for example, I like all my monthlies together. I might like my weeklies together. I like my dailies together. And I like my notes about my kids together. And you can't move that around once you've decided in your bullet journal. So that really, really frustrated me. And I just couldn't stay in the bullet journal because of that. And I've never gone back just because now with two kids, I have even less time. Like, that was my attempt at a unicorn drawing. I have no time to do this these days, right? So it definitely doesn't work for me. But recently I was listening to the audiobook on Audible, and I've talked about Audible a little bit in the past with my with GTD, Getting Things Done by David Allen. So I listened to the bullet journal book. I think that was my second free credit. I'll link it down below for those of you guys who have never heard of Audible. It's basically audiobooks, and you can get the first two for free if you're a new member. So I'll link everything down below. I think those are the two free books that I got. And I listened again to kind of like the basics of bullet journaling and the true foundation before it became this internet phenomenon, I guess. And it actually is quite functional at its core. It's just, I think the creative aspect of the bullet journal really took over, and that's what people think of it as today, is like basically like a journal with, or a planner / journal with like drawings and stuff, right? But the original one doesn't have all the complex drawings, the complex spreads. They're actually quite simple. The other resource that is really great is thebulletjournal.com. And that kind of takes you through the basics of the core of the bullet journal system and how the actual method works. So today what I thought I would do is share with you guys how I think I'm going to implement it or try it again in the future. I mean, you guys know that I love GTD, and in my next video, I'll probably do a comparison about bullet journal and GTD. So make sure you subscribe and click the notification if you guys want to see that video. But I do love GTD, but I, at the same time, wanted to give bullet journal a try because it is, I'm not gonna lie, kind of popular. You kind of see it everywhere, and I wanted to give my own spin of it, the functional spin, which really isn't even a spin because like the original was already functional. Okay, so enough of me blabbing. So I thought the best way for me to show you was, I didn't want to just like talk about the system because then it's hard to visualize without seeing it. So instead, what I will do is take you through the inserts kind of I created for my ring planner. Now, like I said before, one of my biggest pet peeves was the fact that it was in a notebook and I couldn't move things around. I couldn't take things out. For me, I need something that's more flexible. So I love rings. I mean, you guys know I love rings. So I've created these inserts, and again, take away the process. You guys don't need these exact inserts. I create them because I own an Etsy shop. I've said this a million times. Please take away the process, not necessarily the inserts. Or you could take this as inspiration and make your own inserts, okay? If you want the inserts, they'll be up in my shop hopefully by the time this video goes up. If it's not, whatever, you guys can create your own, okay? So what we start with is an index page, and the index is really just a table of contents to keep track of everything behind that. In the original book, like I don't know if it's the original, but you know, the, what do you call it? Not the standard, but the bullet journal book. They have, I think, the table of contents as well for you, but this is just a good way to keep track of the things behind it, right? It's pretty straightforward. So I have just 4 pages of index, I guess, pages to track everything. And then next goes to my key. So let me zoom in, and these key symbols I've really taken from bullet journal. Is that focused? No, it's not. Is that focused? I think now it is. So these this key is highlighting the symbols that you can use throughout your bullet journal. I do think these are really relevant and good key symbols. How many times can you say symbols? I actually use some of these within my GTD system already right now, just because they are so relevant. So for example, the task is just a dot. When you've completed it, you just cross it out. When you've migrated, and I'll show you how the migration works, but there's 2 types of migrations. One is a forward arrow and one is a back. Forward arrow meaning you've moved it forward. Back means actually here means you've moved it back to the future log, which is like a broader spectrum. So instead of, like, for example, you're doing your dailies and you no longer want to do it this month and you move it backwards to your monthly log, for example, or your monthly spread to reallocate to yourself at a future date. That's kind of confusing, isn't it? I'll try to explain it better as you follow through the video. So the next one is if the task is irrelevant, you cross it out, then a dash for notes, a circle for events, then you have a star for priority. So a task could be a priority, a note could be a priority, any of these items could be a priority. It's just something you want to highlight. Then you have the inspiration, which is something you want to call out with an explanation. So these are what Ryder Carroll has originally come up with, and if you listen to his book or go to his website, you will see these there. Now, I added a couple for myself. One is I use a heart for memory, just things that I want to call out that I might want to transfer into a memory journal or whatever. And then the other one I thought would be a good one is a question. This one is more so for work. Sometimes I'm writing notes and I think of a question related to those items, so that's my little question mark. Okay, so you can add whatever keys you want. You can even add color or whatever. But what Ryder Carroll says is that don't create too many items or else you're going to kind of get lost in your key and you won't remember what each of those items are. Then after the key, you come to your future log. This is really just pre-planning, guys. And so what it is you just usually have like your monthlies. It's very, very broad, and you put in your high level future events. You don't write the details yet because you don't know what it is because it's in the future. It's really just to write down future events. So I've just filled it out mostly with birthdays because I don't have really much planned in a pandemic and like a few months out. So that's that. That's where you're going to do all your planning, your future planning. That's why they call it a future log, okay? So this is all part of the core Ryder Carroll system. And when you look at his actual original framework, I guess you could call it, like, really the future log is not this like crazy beautiful spread that people have it now where they like draw out these fancy calendars and everything. Like, it was just something like this. It was literally like a few boxes and he writes the month on the side and calls it a day, right? Then after that is the monthly log. And again, his monthly log is kind of similar with this, where he literally writes down the days or the dates, and then like the days of the week beside it. So that's what I kind of did in my insert. And what I did here was I left some space because you can add little signifiers. Signifiers are those two that we talked about, which is like the little asterisk to highlight a priority, as well as the exclamation mark to really call something out. And he talks about using this in two ways. One is you could use this to pre-plan, or you can, sorry, not pre-plan. You can use this to write the events as they occur, or you could use this, I guess not pre-plan, but like schedule it in from the future log, right? So in that month, once you get to January, for example, you'll go into your monthly log and add in all your specific dates. Or as the days pass, you can come back here and note the actual events that occurred. So what I might do for the future, for my monthly log, is I would probably put in what actually happened, just to keep it simple, because there is not a lot of space, and I do kind of like calling out the actuals of what actually happened in that day, so I can have like an easy like view of the things that occurred. Then on the back, I just have a space to jot down any notes or a monthly reflection or whatever I want here. Okay, so then he goes into really the daily log or the daily pages, and he doesn't actually have a weekly spread in his original system. And I think the reason why he doesn't have that is it is a bit redundant, I would say. You already have your future log to pre-plan your events. You have a monthly log if you want to then further break that down a little bit. So I guess he didn't think he really needed a weekly. He didn't really explain that, but I'm sure like you can obviously create your own, which is what the community does now, is they create whatever spreads they want. But for him, he doesn't have it in his original. So I just also went straight into that, and I just went into doing the dailies on this dot page. So this is just like the, dot paper or whatever. And I'm pretty used to grid, but I thought I'd give, dots a try because it's kind of fun. And so here you can kind of see what we just discussed in action. So you usually just put the date as kind of your header / your collections title. Sorry, not collection title, as your title for that day, obviously, because you're doing a daily plan. And that's important because you're going to bring that back to your index. If I can find mine. And here, for example, on whatever page it is, I would just put the date there into here. Okay. So in here, you'll see how it all works. His method of writing things down really quickly and using these signifiers or symbols is, he calls it the rapid logging system. Is that what he says? Not maybe system, but rapid logging is what he calls it. And basically the point of that is like to make your sentence as concise as possible. So don't write fluffy words. Don't try to write a paragraph. Just make it as simple as possible and use the little symbols that we discussed to denote what that sentence is for. So if it's just a note, you would do the dash. If it's a task, you do the dot. And when you've completed it, you just cross it out. And then what else can I show you here? If it's an event, you do the little circle. Here I had a little memory. My youngest daughter, I'm pretty sure she said I love you this morning, but I don't know. Maybe I just thought she did. And so I put like a little heart here as my memory, and I also put the asterisk because it is something that I want to call out and I want to take out from this page and put it into a memory planner. And then I just put in my film YouTube notes actually for this video. So I put the little dot for a task, and then I have the notes below it. So this system works for me, I think, when I've moved it to its bare bones and put it into rings. This really combats my two biggest issues that I had with the bullet journal system, which is, the notebook. I really, really did not like the notebook. And two is the whole thing about feeling like I have to make these spreads that I don't have time to make. So I kind of like having the inserts created already and just getting to use the functional aspect of this system. So at the back here, I'll also just show you what I plan to do is I have a section for collections. So these are more long-term notes, I guess, or lists or whatever you want to call it, and some ideas that I wrote down for myself. For example, I could do one for food log, workout. I could do a sketchbook if I do want to be creative and do some drawings or practice drawings. Self-care stuff, cleaning tracker, outfit planner, health log, medicine tracker. Basically anything that you can think of under the sun that I guess goes into like your other categories or sections in a ring planner, you could put in your collection section. And that's what I think I'll try to do here. So for those of you who had the same issue as me and want to use the core system but don't want to do the hassle of the spreads and all that stuff that comes along with it, I really recommend trying this in Ring Planner and trying it with spreads. Whether it's spreads that you create yourself or inserts that are already created. I mean, it doesn't have to be this exact bundle that I have here, right? Like the index, it comes, like you can look up an index insert. The dot grid pages, you could use grid pages, you could use line pages. It's stuff that you already have, to be honest. If you have a future log, you could just use your current, I don't know, a monthly insert as your future. Just call it future log, right? You could have your monthly log be a monthly insert, a different monthly insert, or just combine it and use the same. You can really play around with it, but you could do the core system of using the keys and migrating things back and forth. So actually, let's talk about the migration aspect of it. So when I'm doing a task, say I have a task here that I didn't finish, and I think I'm going to do it maybe next month or in a future time, not necessarily tomorrow or any, day soon. So then I would do the backwards arrow and I would migrate it back to my future log at the front here, right? That's why they have the back arrow. You're migrating it back to the front of your notebook, because in the actual traditional bullet journal, how you set it up is you have these spreads in the front and then your daily pages and everything in the back, right? Then if it's something that actually belongs, let's say it's a task that you don't actually need to do, it's something that maybe relates to, let's say, your workouts or relates to a food that you're eating or something, you could also migrate it forward. You can migrate it forward into your collections that we talked about here. So whatever collections, or you can migrate it to your next day, right? So when you start your dailies for the next day, you can migrate it there. So that's a big part of the bullet journal system. Now, I'll talk more about the key differences next week with GTD, but one of the things that I don't love about this is that basically what he says is like each day you're going to be migrating things forward and backwards if you're not completing the task. So there is a bit of redundancy in rewriting things a lot, but he says that, Ryder Carroll is who I mean by he says that when you migrate something, then you're forcing yourself to think, oh, is that task still relevant? And if it's no longer relevant, you can cross it out. So at each point when you migrate, you're really thinking, am I actually going to do this task before you write it down again? Don't know if I fully agree with that, because sometimes I just get pretty lazy, but we'll talk about the details of, the two differences and my opinions on that next time. So yeah, I think that's the core of it. So I feel like the actual bare bones of the system hasn't been discussed a lot recently, just because it really is just about the actual bullet journal, the beautiful spreads and stuff. So I don't know if this video was helpful at all, but if you guys did find it helpful and you want to hear about its comparison with other systems like the GTD method, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell as well so that you know when my video is released. I think I'm going to do my next video on that. And with that, I'll leave it there and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching, and bye.